Okay, so we're in the first sheet, Chicago temp statistics. We've got the instructions up here, and the first part is that we're going to do a histogram. And this is where we left off in week 6, as we did my first histogram. And we're going to build a histogram today on the Chicago temperatures, and then we're going to do the rest of this. Actually, the histogram is the hardest part in some ways of this whole assignment. So it's nice that it's right off the bat, first thing. Okay, so if you think back to my first histogram, we have to have, we're making a frequency table basically. So building a histogram. Number one, we need to build a frequency table. And then from there, we can insert the graph based on the frequency table. Then we need to make our adjustments. And that's title, axis labels, get the gap width to 0. So these are the 3 steps. And in some ways, I think this first step is the hardest part. And a lot of times students will kind of skip over that and just make the Excel-based histogram, which, is something, but it's going to cost you a lot of points in milestone 2 if you do it that way. I'll just show it to you so you know that it's an option. You just go insert, and you go to this blue guy, and you do histogram, and bam, you get yourself a histogram. Actually, that's not working. Just select the data, insert, histogram, bam. Okay, so it is possible to skip the first step and build a histogram just based on Excel's tools. That is not what I'm interested in, because we've been practicing with building frequency tables and processing data. So that step 1 is actually a significant piece of what I want to see. So let's talk about how to do it. First of all, I really need to know the min and the max in order to kind of figure out how to build my frequency table. Because if I think about the frequency table steps, let's break it down. We're going to need to really just do 2 things. One is make the ranges, and the second one is count how many days are in each range. So making the ranges is, if you think back to my first histogram, was about time people spent on Instagram. And so it was like 0.5 to 1.5. So it's that's the decision we got to make, is like, well, what are we going to do here? So a good first step for that is to look at the max and min to decide. So let's look at the max and min values here. And I'm just going to put them over here because they're actually useful for the range. I'm not sure what's going on with my formatting here, but equals max. And then I get my data equals min. And then I get my data. And so I've got a maximum of about 90 and a minimum of 7, which is not bad for Chicago. No negative temperatures. All right. So that means I've got to cover a range from 7 to 90. And a lot of times I'm going to try to pick kind of nice numbers. So when I say nice numbers, I mean things that end in 0 or 5. And I'm going to try to count in reasonable steps so that I'm not doing weird, I'm going in steps of 7.2 degrees. No, like if I'm going to start at 5, I could count in tens, 5, 15, 25, 35. Easy for me to count. And that makes it easy for me to make my labels. Okay. So this could go from 5 to 15, from 15 to 25, 25 to 35. Oops, there's a typo. All right. So already I'm thinking to myself, I'm doing a very similar thing over and over again. It would be nice if I could have Excel do that. And there is a way to make it happen. So let me show you the kind of more fancier version. You're welcome to continue on like this. If you want to just type it all out, you can just type up your ranges. But this is a process for how to use the work we did with COUNTIF to kind of build a larger structure for your histograms for your frequency tables. So I'm going to identify the lower bound and the upper bound. This is 5. This is 15. So this is going to be the 5 to 15 box from 15 to 25. And by that point, I think I have enough information here to do autofill. Let's see. Yes. So it worked fine. Just to autofill, I didn't have to write any formulas. Excel identified the pattern. So we're looking good. I'm counting by tens, and I've got my lower bounds and my upper bounds. So this row is going to go from 5 to 15. Now, the other thing that I need to decide is where am I going to include the number 15? Because I may have some numbers like this number here, 25. Where does 25 go? Does it go into this box or does it go into this box? So I have to be clear in my own mind about that. I'm going to have 15 be the inclusive side, which means that I want just to write out the words. I'm not going to leave this as my label because this is too many words. From 5 to 15, including 15. So there's a way to write that in symbols. And in the histogram, actually, there's a little nod to that. When we do the histogram with Excel, you can see the way they do the labels here is actually called interval notation. And this on the left side, let me just kind of zoom in here. On the left side, you see a parenthesis, and on the right side, you see a square bracket. That's called interval notation. And so there's a much shorter way to write that label, which is like this. 5, 15. And that's what it means. From 5 to 15, including 15, is written like this. Okay, so let's use our first fancy formula to do our labels. And these are basically temperature ranges. That's a better label than label. All right, and so I'm going to use what's called the concat formula. And I'm going to put in, I think, 5 different things here. So this formula looks pretty crazy. Make sure you're being very accurate with your quotations and your commas because it's important. So the first thing that I'm going to put in is a parenthesis because I'm not including the first number, which is the lower bound. Then I'm going to put a comma and I'm going to put the next thing I want, which is the number of the lower bound. Then I'm going to put the next thing I want, which is a comma. So the comma is actually in quotations because that's part of what the label needs to include. And then I'm going to have my next number. Sorry, made a mistake. Comma. Then I need my next number. And then I need my final closing square bracket. Okay. So there are 5 things there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if we look at a label, there are 5 things in the label. And I'll number those out here in a second. I'm going to go back, take off my annotation tool, press enter. So you can see that there are 5 things in my label. And it worked out perfectly. And I'm ready to autofill, which is lovely because I don't want to have to type that over and over again. Okay. So just to go back to the annotation tool for a second, right, there are 5 things in the label. There's the parenthesis, there's the number, there's the comma, there's another number, and there's that square bracket. So that's where all the pieces come in the concat formula. And again, you know, useful if you want to take a picture of that. Oh, let me get rid of that annotation because that's getting in the way now of seeing the formula, right? It's kind of shortened it up. I put some extra spaces in, it took the spaces out, but you can see that there are 5 parts there. If you're using Google Sheets, I think that the formula that you have to use is concatenate, not concat. So if you start typing concat, you'll see concatenate pop up, and that's the formula you need for Google Sheets. All right. So now we do the really hard one, which is the count ifs. Now we did a count if before when we were looking at the stress survey, and we didn't want to have to go back and like count with our eyes. So we know the structure of count if, and all we're going to do here is add on the S. And I actually showed this to you last week as a sort of a preview, but we didn't do it fully programmatically, and that's what we're going to do here. So the first thing is I need the range. And I think the range is from A2 to A366. Okay, so then I need to come back up to my formula. Don't miss the S there on the COUNTIFs because it'll grouch at you and then you'll be confused about why it's not working. So what I want to type is greater than 5, comma, and then I want to do it all over again, A2 to A366, comma, and I want to be less than or equal to 15. So notice that every quotation has a closing quotation, right? I've got 3 commas and I've got 4 pieces of information, the range, and then this little greater than or less than statement, and the range, greater than or less than statement. This is not going to work to autofill, but it will work to count. There are 3 of those. If I tried to autofill, I'll just keep getting 3 because I keep asking the same question every time. So I need to make this programmatic by taking out the 5 as a typed in value and putting it in as a cell reference. So the way to do that is you delete the 5 from inside the quotations, then you go outside of the quotation, and you put the and, which is Shift 7, and then you click on the cell, which in my case is D19. In your case, it may not be D19. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with 15 and 15. Works exactly the same, and now we can autofill. Now, there is a slight wrinkle there, and let's just check some. See, I'm missing a few days, and I made a mistake that I just remembered as I was doing my autofill. So I'm going to go back again and look at this. The problem is that I didn't fix my range. So what would have happened is I would have gone down in the rows that I'm slowly shifting my range down, and then I start missing days because I'm not looking at the same full set of data. I'll try it one more time. Here we go. I'm going to do a sum down here. There it is, 365. Great. And so now I'm ready to make my actual histogram. So again, this whole part here is just step 1, building the frequency table. And it's the hardest part. And it's the part that you're going to need to do for milestone 2 when you do your housing summary. You've got your prices, you've got your square footage. You're going to do 2 histograms based on that. And so this is the process that I would be looking for full points in that milestone 2. All right, let's make the histogram. So we've got this. We're going to insert our graph. And remember, the graph here is not a histogram. It's just a regular column chart. And then I finish. So now I've done step 2, insert the graph. And now I'm going to finish with my adjustments. I'm going to get the gap width down to 0. So remember, click on a bar, format the data series, bring the gap width to 0. Don't forget to put on your axis labels. All of these need to be renamed, title, this, and I got my histogram done. Okay. There's not much more to do on this sheet. You're going to do the measures of center. You're going to do the measures of spread. Most of these have formulas that are connected to the actual name, right? So if I start typing equals median, I'll see the median formula come up. If I start typing equals mode, I see a bunch of mode formulas come up. Remember that mode.mult is the one that we want to use because I want to see if there's multiple modes. It's possible, like in that example we did with the movie ratings, 1 and 5 were the answer to that. Sample variance equals variance, and then remember that you want to follow along with whichever one we're doing. This is a sample, not a population, and so we would do var.s. And then our measure for the standard deviation, st, there we go, and there it is, .s is the one we want. So those 4 formulas are all related to the name of the formula. Range is different. I need the max and the min, which I've already got set up down here. And remember, I just subtract maximum minus minimum. And then mean is the average. So we do equals average, and we find the mean. All right. In the next video, when I circle back, I'm going to show you the answers here. And then you have enough, I think, to be able to do the next city. But I'm going to check the directions, make sure we got everything. But I've already said a lot here. This is an important video for the histogram information. Okay, I'm going to stop there.